Hello, Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today's date, it is uh, April 25th of 2021. I think this is Saturday. No, I think we're now we're Sunday. Uh, so Tuesday, I go to have an appointment to see my doctor. I think it's been about a year. The doctor likes to see me every 6 months, and it's been about a year because of this virus thing. I've had both my virus shots now, and they both should have kicked in. Each one was 21 days to wait, and so, but of course I'll still wear the mask when I get out for a while until the CDC or somebody that knows what's going on makes some recommendations. Uh, I'm moving things around as I always do in this room, trying to keep a path through here so that I don't scrape my leg or scrape my foot. Last time I scraped my leg from a very minor scratch, I ended up in the hospital for 6 days. I'm using Manicam, and like I said, I've moved stuff around. I have, two monitors, as you can see, going. This is the LG monitor. This one right there. And I don't even see if I've got I've got a flashlight here, so I can tell you what it says on the front of this thing. ViewSonic. And that's the ViewSonic. On top of the ViewSonic is the Logitech C920. But over here, this is the Logitech Brio camera on top of a tripod. So on the desktop, right now is running Discord. And I have no idea. It looks like it's a pretty neat program. And it looks like you can do a lot with it, but it's over my head. But it's set up to chat, set up to follow different chat type rooms. And you can do a lot of things with it, and you can integrate it with YouTube and Facebook and all that type of stuff. And right now I'm in the help desk YouTube channel. I did a search for Manicam. I didn't see. Let's see. Well, I know they definitely have OBS. In fact, this is the type of stuff you see. This is from se.support room. And to add your overlay, well, wait a minute. I'm gonna have to go out here a little bit more. A little more. I have to cover up my, well, let's go up here. Make us a little more, give a little more room here. That wants even more room. To add your overlays to OBS, add a new browser source in your scene. Paste your overlay URL in the browser source properties. Set the dimensions to 1920 by 1080, and then click. I wonder if I can drag this over. Nope. Gotta go this way with it. Oh, come on now. Anyway, there's a lot of information there, and I'm sure it could really help somebody if you could figure out how to use it. And the problem I see is with all these help desks for Facebook and help desk for mobile and OBS Live and all that kind of stuff. If you go there and these people, because I saw someplace, like they're telling you, okay, like it's the help desk. Let me do that here so you can, it's like the help desk. And they're telling you, okay, well, here's what you do. You enter, which would be a Linux command. This is not the one. I'm just looking on my screen seeing something. You enter like sudo rm slash, rf slash what. I mean, these you're giving people, you're telling, there's people there, well, you're just telling them what to, or they're telling you, and then they can have your entire computer, they can format your, who knows. So, but they've got everything here. Here's the help desk for Twitch. Did you connect OBS itself to YouTube? Check file, settings, blah, 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 blah. Here's another one. To add your overlays to OBS, add a new browser source. Okay, that's just one I think I read a while ago. Yeah, I just think it's extremely dangerous unless you know what you're doing. Before there was a World Wide Web, when there was just the internet or whatever, what were the user groups called? They're still going. But when you went there into the thing where you could type, questions and answers and that kind of stuff, there were people just waiting to issue a command that would pop up on your, that would pop in and say something, you need to log in to, was it users group, news groups? I think news groups maybe. You need to enter your password. And then of course, I don't know what percentage of people, but a high percentage of people, going there would think that came from the system, and they would enter their password. The person had control of their, could shut them down, do whatever they wanted to do. It just seems like maybe I'm missing something here. Anyway, I'm on here. I'm not sure where in the hell I am except when I'm, So, I'm going to go ahead and shut this. Oh, you're not seeing this. Sorry, here we go back here. Anyway, this is interesting. It's Discord. And I could see where it would be tremendously helpful if you could trust the people that are telling you things. But I don't see how you can. Oh, I see down here, no, it just stays there, so. N0UWY is my username, and it says number 1203. I'm thinking that's, well, I was not the 1,203rd person to sign up for this. I'm not sure, but anyway, there's a microphone, headset, and user settings. Okay, here I am. Username, N0UWY. I don't know. I think that's all, And my email number. Well, there's the last 4 digits of my phone number, so that's not too, that's not too good, is it? Change password, enable disable account, delete account, I don't know. Anyway. Oh, I fixed that problem. You probably heard me cussing the other day several times. About every time I tried to move a browser or something that would fill the screen. I knew that I've had to go, and I should write it down because I'll have to go there again, because every time they upload a fix, an addition or whatever to Windows 10, they apparently, move that back to standard or something like that. But I do not want it, when I just drag this to the side of the screen here, I do want it to jump and fill up the entire, I'm not going to cuss. I can't help it. I started out life as a Boilermaker. We weren't the most gentle, working many, many years later. I'd been through, a couple of businesses that my wife and I owned together, years and years of hospice security and other jobs and all that kind of stuff, working at a hospital, small one. And I think all the hospitals do this. When you're a patient there, whether it's the emergency room or whether you're a patient, on the floor or something, they send a questionnaire out when you have a certain amount of time after you leave. I think all the hospitals, maybe they didn't all use the volunteers, but what they strive to do was to make sure that, like say your father or mother is admitted to the hospital and either, die in the emergency room or go up to the floor and die. I don't want to say everybody dies, but you're getting the drift here. So then the volunteers either go through these things and take out anyone who's expired so that you don't go home, you take your father or your mother or your baby to the emergency room and the patient expires. So a week later or 2 weeks later, the hospital doesn't want you to get a thing in the mail saying, how was your visit to the emergency room? Was your, whatever, I forget how they would word it, was the patient, satisfied with, stuff they say. And I know a few times the volunteers didn't catch it, probably more than a few times. And, that would go out. But I'm not sure at all the hospital. The first hospital I worked at, I don't even remember. That was like 1972 to 1974 or something, like 1971, don't even remember. But they send out the thing, and it I think it would ask you, at the end, do you want to put your name in here? You want to do that? But when they went out, they were coded, with a code. So, and this one hospital, I worked out there 9 years, and then I went back and worked another year when they yanked me out of there after 9 years and put me in another hospital, a couple other hospitals. But they would come back in and they would be, bundled up, and then if I came in, when I would check the mailroom, if I saw them, they'd be like, to begin with, they'd be like stuffed in the administrative box, They wouldn't make copies of them, but it would just be, they'd all be stuffed in the and I would take them down to the emergency room. If I didn't take it, they'd make the rounds. I wasn't taking something out of a secure private area wasn't what it's supposed to be or anything. I would take it down to the emergency room. There was one doctor, I really admired him. The nurses would say, "Oh, doctor, we got these," or she'd say, "Well, Jim got these for us," and Dr. Stevens would say, "I don't want to see him," and but oh, well, remember this one time. By the way, I worked at that hospital, security. There was only two of us that worked. I worked 4 days a week. The other guy worked 3 days a week. There was no security during the daytime. And in the 9 years that I worked out there, never did anybody ever write it. Well, somebody did. They wrote in, "Oh, security was so nice and opened the door for us and let us in," or whatever. And I thought, well, finally, after 9 years out here, and then I looked, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's not what, it was a plant operations guy. There was a while when that first, then they, at that hospital, Research Belton Hospital, the main hospital, Research Medical Center, wanted to build one out in a small town, where I live, by the way, and in order to do that, they had to, the government sets up these things, but hospitals and probably everybody else know how to get around these, no matter what it is, they're going to get around it. But they were trying to cut down at that time through legislation in various states that somebody couldn't just start a hospital, somebody couldn't just move or, add beds, couldn't add, well, not just beds, but you couldn't add a CAT scan. You couldn't do this kind of stuff because they didn't want a surplus of it because it was raising costs to go up. But so what the hospital did is they said they took, when I think they did because they had a surplus. They had about 550 beds, I believe, at the main hospital. So they transferred 80. They put in their procedure in the write-up they did, they said, okay, we're going to transfer 80 of these beds, or I think it was 80, whatever, out to this new hospital we want to build, so they were approved. And they only actually set, I think, about 40 of them up. The rest were there and could be used when needed, but they just did like 40 of them, to start with. And so, how did I get on this subject? There was a reason, and I can't remember now what it was. So, anyway, I was working out there, and these questionnaires came in. I went and got them, and I looked, and no, I wasn't working then. I was not working then. It was a plant operations guy, so I worked there like 9 years. Nobody ever wrote, But anyway, I was working. I went and got these, and ER was looking, and what they would do is, with the code, it would be, Jim, would you go down to medical records and get this, medical record chart? And I'd go down, bring it back, maybe bring a stack of them back, and then they could see, who the patient was that complained. I remember there was an elderly nurse, really good nurse, Virginia, and she got into trouble a lot of times, just because she was Virginia. She was a good nurse, though, great nurse, excellent nurse, been around a long time, a nurse for a long time, and anyway, what she would say to the patients sometimes when they'd come in, like it was a man, she wasn't, she wasn't flirting or anything like that. But she'd say to the patient, like, oh, honey, how are you feeling? Are you okay? Or something like that. So, this one, I think you could tell by, like, it was like, my husband came into, the hospital, And this nurse said honey to him. And I don't appreciate that that was said. And of course, okay, Virginia. So I remember later I was working, you know, a week later, 5 weeks later, a month later, whatever. Uh, this they came back to the emergency room, and Virginia had gotten. I'm not sure if she got written up for it, or if she was just told, "Don't do this anymore." And then Virginia went right. Virginia recognized, went right over, and the husband and wife were right there. And she said to the guy, something, honey, are you feeling okay? And whatever. And then I think she might have said, well, they told me I wasn't. To say honey, um, oh, so I went and got these charts one time. They came in they come about every month. I guess they put them together and then made them available. And I was reading through, looking through them. Now there was no medical, there was no medical information here. So it was. These were comments to a questionnaire. Did the lab tech, did you have to wait long? And I mean, it was just stuff like this. But people could add comments. And somebody, the emergency room there, small emergency room, they had like 4 beds along here. And there was the trauma room, the big room for codes and that kind of stuff. Then there was one room that, of course, they'd have to use it for other things also, but it was like the casting room for putting cast on and that type of stuff. And then there was some rooms around the corner that they sort of hoped they wouldn't have to use when they built this place, but they had to use, and there were rooms back there of, I don't know, 4 or 5, something like that. Might have been a little area too, I can't remember now, maybe where there was some carts there, or some carts there, not carts, but beds. And it was a long curtain you could pull, but, and then there was the ER desk for the nurses and whatever. Then around, down a little bit was the admitting clerk for admitting to the emergency room. And then there was a little room, not much bigger than this room, where the nurses could, a little break area. They had a coffee pot, they had a microwave, and a table and a few chairs and stuff. And when there weren't any patients there, or even when there were, sometimes, one or more of us would be in there. Anyway, somebody wrote on this questionnaire that was sent out and sent back, somebody wrote, the nurses were in this little room. They were just laughing and joking, and there was a lot of, I forget what they put exactly, vulgar languages, or a lot of cuss words being used or something like that. And anyway, I think the nurses were kind of I think they were doing their charting, that's, if you want to be a nurse, a lot of skills you need. One, you better be prepared for carpal tunnel, and of course now a lot of it has changed, I'm sure, a lot more has changed, more hitting keys on key, but anyway, so I'm in there and the nurses are writing there, because Jim, they'd have me read the paper to them in the morning, at least the headlines sometimes. I'd bring the paper, when it came, and they'd say, Jim, read the headlines, and of course I would change them a little bit sometimes when I thought it would be funny. And, but anyway, so I'm reading this questionnaire had been sent back, and it said, and I read what, it said, the nurses were in the break room, and they were just laughing up, and everything was so funny, and here we were out here, and then there was all the cuss words being used. So anyway, I read it, and I said, we don't cuss that much. We don't, whatever. I said, sure, sometimes something gets said, but not, and everything. I think one of the nurses said, is that right, Jim? I said, yeah, that's right. And then for the rest of the night, I wouldn't be angry about anything, or it would, it'd just be, I forget what I'd say, but it would be something. They'd go, bang, and I go, oh, damn, bang, because I really didn't realize how much. Man, there was one time I was working, and there was that room I told you about, the casting room, where they would put patients. It wasn't just for it was a room that had to be used, for other things too. And they put this lady in there, and I think she had her husband or somebody with her. And they closed the door. The nurses closed the door. And I remember the nurse for some reason. Diane, first name Diane. And she said something. And I could barely hear it. And I was right there next, and the door was closed to this room. And Diane said something. And then the lady in the room hollered out or something, a nurse or something. And Diane went over and opened the door. Yeah, can I help you? And then this patient said, I don't appreciate you saying such and such. Wow. And that patient could hear what was being said. And that was amazing. Especially for somebody like me with hearing that's not so good. By the way, in a few hours, there is going to be, oops, got to go back here, don't I? Going to be a satellite pass that's going to come right over, well, the International Space Station. So, okay, I think I have that under radio stuff. Yep, let's see. Radio reference, global Amstack, UK, global maps, APRS. By the way, global maps, APRS. Okay. It's pretty neat to be an amateur radio operator, and all kinds of stuff you can do, but it's, I don't think it's doing very well because, of course, the #1 country is the United States and Japan is second. But tremendous numbers of countries have ham, or, allow ham radio operators. What did I want to do? Okay. APRS. Okay. Okay, this is my call sign issued by the Federal Communications Commission. And let's see. That's me both times, but okay, so this is updated. This is my location on the map right here, N0UWY. Now I lost myself. Where are you? Oops, whoops, whoops. Oh, come on. Here I am. Okay, this was my location on April 17th, oh, just a few days ago, April 17th of 2021, and you can zoom right in, see where, where I was. But the interesting, like when it's turned on, when I'm, Now, I'm using my cell phone for this. If you're an amateur radio operator, you can, use a cell phone also. You have to be licensed to do this. But, let's see. Which camera? Okay, there we go. So I'm using APRS on a cell phone. It sends out my location, my speed, elevation, all of that type of stuff. Now, what this was, okay, it's already updated. Remember just a little bit ago when I first came here, I told you it was the 21st. But now that's, it's updating with my correct time located. Of course, I'm not going anywhere. But if I were in a car or a bicycle, I walked around Miami. Then I wasn't using a cell phone. I was actually using my ham radio and walking around. So your location then gets, goes into a repeater or goes into the network and, sent out. But then you also, you can see what your speed is. It'll show up on a map and everything. Pretty neat. A nice reason to be an amateur radio operator, but you young whippersnappers are not interested in this now. You got computers and the World Wide Web and the internet. I'm going to stop this sending because there's no reason to really be sending it out except to stop. Okay. You can see that you can actually text messages and stuff. You can actually go through the International Space Station and you can talk to people and all types of stuff. So that's that. Now, what was I going to show you? Oh, okay. Where is, let's see, where is what? Okay, where is the International Space Station? Oh, you can't see, I gotta go back here. I need a full-time assistant. This space site is the European Space Agency. And, okay. Now this is from a camera. Okay, well here we are already. So you can see the International Space Station is right here. See if we can go full screen here. There we are. Heading for Australia. There's the latitude, the longitude, the altitude, 427 kilometers. The speed of the International Space. It's got 11 people on it, by the way, now. 4 of them will be leaving late, but right now this is the largest number I think that the International Space Station has had of astronauts on board, or cosmonauts. And the speed is 27,560 miles. And at around 6 a.m. I have this on the my cell phone here that I can look up. Let's see, metric and imperial. There we go. 17,124 miles per hour. Remember the time it was the telescope. The United States and the world was so happy that finally we had put in, a fantastic telescope. We're still getting, images from it, remarkable images. And, okay, this is not live streaming, so I start to say, okay, right now, but I'm just recording this, I believe, yes. But tomorrow, well, in a few hours, about 4 hours or 5 hours, the International Space Station is going to cross right over Fort Worth, actually over the middle, like the United States. Well, I haven't seen the tracking yet, but let's go to close this down. Let's see, what did we were using? Where are you? Man, there is so much information available now. When I was in grade school and in high school, there was there was no World Wide Web. There was no internet, and a lot of people were interested in shortwave radio and amateur radio, and we listened to international shortwave broadcast, and you had to figure out where the station was, and sometimes you could go by frequency, and then, well, that's the one that the BBC uses all the time. And then, of course, you listened for announcements, and they weren't always in English, and then they had an interval signal that different stations use, and you could look in a book called the World Radio Television Handbook, which is still available, and it's also online, of course. And you could look up their interval signal, Big Ben, and stuff like that. Then there was also phrases that they would use in the language. So if they were broadcasting and you didn't, you couldn't figure out that they would be, and you could go, oh, that's the Vatican, or that's I remember tuning in when, I forget which pope it was that died. It was announced on the local news or whatever that Pope so-and-so had passed away. And I knew that the Vatican would be broadcasting in English in an hour or so or something like that. And I knew their frequency, so I tuned it in on my shortwave radio. And then they, I forget what the bells were now, bells of St. Peter's or something, And then I forget what the announcements, what to start out, like Jay-Z Christie or something or other, which in Latin. And then, the announcer announced, the Holy Father passed away at such and such, and a chill went up, just went up my spine from that. The same chill or whatever when I went to the military high school, De La Salle Military Academy, taught by the Christian Brothers. That was a big mistake for a high school boy to go to a school where there were no girls. That was not. I wanted to be in the military though, but the same chill, like for 4 years at De La Salle. Every Friday we had a full dress, on Friday we wore our dress uniform to school. We had our regular classes for the first half of the day, but we were in our dress uniform. And Then for the second half of the day, the rest of that day was military. Military. We had military every day, but on Friday, half of the day was, and there was a full dress parade. Um, in what was called the Parade Park, right across. And for those who have been in the military or people who watch TV a lot or whatever, you have the band, you have the, uh, color guard, all that type of stuff, and then it's like, national anthems played, sound of the colors, uh, and when they played the sound of the colors or whatever, or maybe it was the national anthem, can't remember. Every time for 4 years on Friday, I always got that chill. And of course, I'm not sure if we did it for all 4 years. I have a feeling we might have skipped 1 year for some reason. Maybe we were coming down with colds or something. But every morning for the start of class, the entire regiment would fall in. I think we only had 2 battalions, so anyway, you have to make do with what you have. Would fall in front of the school, of course in uniform, because we were in uniform 5 days. Now I think in the morning we didn't have. Oh, I don't think we all drew our M1s, but of course the color guard did. Well, I don't think they had M1s. I think they carried the single action Springfield, whatever, for the color guard. But then we found that other schools were doing the Pledge of Allegiance in class. We were out there, in front of the school in the rain or whatever, and with the colors and the band and the whole thing. By the way, I guess I should say this. Former President Donald Trump also went to a high school, except his father had money. He went to a high school that was, military also. And he went for 4 years to the high school. Then he went on to college, but he, which I find hard to believe from the way but anyway. So he actually said, this is before, because they went back and found it, repeated, but he repeatedly said it. He said that this is when he was running for president. Well, no, it was before. Well, he might have said it too, but he'd said it in the past, repeatedly, that he knew more about the military than the men and women who served in the United States military, because he had gone to an ROTC. I'm sure his was a 55C school also, but he'd gone to high school ROTC for 4 years, and he knew more than the men and women who served in the United States military. When I went to vote when Trump first ran, for the first time, I had to take an Uber over to vote in the morning early, and I talked to the driver a little bit, and he told me he was a veteran and he was voting for Trump. He brought it up, by the way, that he was a veteran and he was voting for Trump. And I said, well, I'm not voting for Trump. And I said, but I'm surprised that you're a veteran and you would vote for him, because he said, and he said, Trump never said that. And I said, yeah, do a search. And then when I got picked up a different driver to come home after voting. I said, the guy said that something about, and he said he was a veteran, and I said, oh, and he said, yeah, I'm, a veteran, and I'm voting for I'm voting for Donald Trump, and I said, well, I said, what do you think about Trump saying? He says, Trump never said that. I don't know if he said fake news or what. But that should have been, well, I knew it was going to be close because, well, everybody at that point knew that it was going to be close. But I think a lot of us, liberals and Democrats, and, well, if you're part of Trump's people, if you're a Republican, us communists, that's what they think we are. But it's, I think we were surprised. Well, one, I didn't want Hillary Clinton, but I didn't have any choice. You have to vote for the, Democrat or Republican. Oh, you could vote for the Green Party, but it's not going to, not going to matter. Or whatever other party there was. The communists used to, here in the United States, they had, their political party, the Communist Party, it was legal. And they ran candidates. Even during the Depression, when things were so bad here, the American people that, weren't interested in the Republican Party. It just kind of shows how stable, of course, Republicans or whatever made it look like, oh my God, these foreigners, running around with bombs, They had their picture of him. I mean, they had their idea what it was like when Castro won his revolution against the government there and took over. He came, by the way, Castro came to, the United States, and I think he stayed like 2 weeks. I know he stayed a long time. And wanted to see President Eisenhower, but Eisenhower was a Republican now, but Eisenhower would have, I'm sure, wanted to see him and probably thought he could do something, but Eisenhower was a Republican. Eisenhower was a good man. But the forces were just so, because when Castro took power, the mafia had, control, the United States mafia had control of the casinos and businesses and everything, that mafia, and not just the mafia, but the U.S., the United Fruit Company and United Telephone and all these American corporations, they were down in Cuba and they were just raking in the money, and it was a criminal, the entire thing was a criminal, syndicate. But so, of course, Castro takes power. Castro's heroes, by the way, were Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Simon Bolivar. Those were his heroes. But so he took control of the country, and then he, as, the leader of Cuba then, said, okay, well, these American corporations or whatever, they're going to have to stop doing this and doing this and doing this, and we're going to regulate them or whatever. And the Republicans went, in the United States, crazy, absolutely crazy, foaming at the mouth and everything else. And then, of course, the United States, threatened Cuba, said, you're not going to tell the United States corporations what to do, and that type of stuff, and it was just insane. So Castro says, oh yeah, and then he nationalized, he said, we'll pay the United States, these corporations, will pay them you know, for what we're taking over. And I'm not sure exactly what it would have been, you know, it would have been, but, you know, we're taking them over, and that's it. And we're an independent country, but everything in South America wasn't, you know, I don't know how many times the United States has, how many times they invaded Cuba before Castro, and other countries. You name the country, you know. The United States sent Marines in or something to get our way. So anyway, then Castro then came to the United States, and Castro came looking like exactly what Hoover, or J. Edgar Hoover, head of the FBI, exactly what our cartoons and what our idea of these communists, and the communists weren't getting any votes in the United States. You know, they had a political party that was legal, and the Americans weren't interested in it. You know, in the thing, even when things were desperate, when times were bad. But anyway, Castro comes to with his follower, you know, some of his people, and he was treated like crap. But he came for a week or two. He wanted to see Disney World, that kind of stuff. But he was hoping to talk to President Eisenhower. And Eisenhower, I'm sure, like I said, would have liked to talk to him and see if something could be worked out. But the Republicans were like, you know, don't you dare, you know, he's a communist. And so anyway, Eisenhower sent Nixon, the vice president, to talk to Castro. And of course, Nixon's entire thing was anti-communism and that type of stuff. And so, you know, there was no way he was going to go and work out a deal. There was no way, oh, okay, well, you know, it was predestined that, you know, Nixon was going to come back and say, he's a terrorist, he's going to, you know. So then Castro went back to Cuba. But he was treated terribly. When the plane first arrived from Cuba, you know, this was a government. It was their president and vice president and who all, you know, on this airplane. And we deliberately, you know, held it at an airport. And I think the airplane, the air conditioning was not plugged in. I mean, you know, it was like, fuck you, you know, you communist, you know. And so we missed a great opportunity. We wouldn't have had to have suffered with, you know, things could have been worked out with Cuba. And it would have been great for the Cuban people. And been great for the United States. And it would have been great for the world if we could have worked out an agreement. And we could have, if, you know, if we didn't have Nixon and Eisenhower in there. So, what time is it? It is 2:10 a.m. We got in some orange juice. I'm going to try to drink an orange juice every morning. If I can keep stocked up on it. Because what do I normally drink 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Coca-Cola Zero. No sugar. It says right on it, 0 sugar. But I don't look like somebody who's not getting sugar. Like I said, I see my doctor Tuesday. My lab work's already in. My AC1, which measures your diabetes, it's higher than what it was a year ago when I had, you know, It's not real high. Well, they have a range, you know, like, okay, for this we'd like for you to be in there. Well, I'm above the top, you know. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. One of these mornings, when the weather's nice, and when I'm not running to the bathroom every 10 minutes, I'm going to try to pick up the signal from the International Space Station as it travels over the middle of the United States and through Texas, and try also to get it on the camera. It's going to be kind of hard. Maybe I can get my son or daughter to help me do it, because you kind of need 3 or 4 hands to do it. And one of these days, what I want to do is actually communicate through the, you know, to the International Space Station. I don't necessarily, you know, need to talk to an astronaut, but just go through their repeater that they have on it and talk to somebody else, someplace else, by going through do a few things like that. If you do a search on YouTube, you'll find people that they'll show you how they do it. And anyway, that's a goal. Anyway, thank you very much for watching.